welcome everyone to this week's episode of Awaken Your Inner Genius. You see our lovely panel on the screen. You've been hearing a lot from them over the past several weeks, and we're glad to have Jackie back this week. Jackie, you look lovely, and we are excited to see you. Ken and James are en route back from Tesla Tech, so they will not be with us tonight, but we have our technical producer, Joey Lohman, and I am tonight reporting live from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we just had Tesla Tech. But before we share more, why don't we just take a moment to tune into the universal heartbeat. Last week you heard about the ocean sounds we provide on the 24-hour live stream, and just take a moment, settle in before we dive into this very, very powerful lesson here today. If you would all close your eyes and tune in to the sound. And as you breathe in, I want you to think about sitting there, standing on the beach, feeling the rhythm of that in and out ocean going in and out. And as you breathe in and out deeply, just have yourself anchored to this moment in time, accepting all the flow that is coming to you, and may the ocean sound simply resonate with your universal heartbeat that you have right inside of your body. As we understand that we are all connected, you'll begin to simply relax your shoulders, relax your neck, and find yourself a way to become grounded in this moment, at this time, becoming centered in your heart space and ready for the powerful words and inspiration that is to come through here with you. Take another breath in. And as you breathe out, I'd like you to relax. Relax your shoulders, relax your hands. Sit back, enjoy. And we can't wait to have all of you begin to join the conversation here in the chat box with us. So let us begin. So we want to show you right quick just a couple of things as we get ready to get in. I really missed all of you the past 2 weeks, but you were fabulous. I was listening to you on the other end.
Thank you. We missed you.
I was exciting to actually be a participant and hear from you all. I was in England the first time, which I want to share with you a little bit about Stonehenge. We shared that Stonehenge picture. How did you like that? I want you to know I carried Universal One all the way in my bag from the East Coast of the U.S. to England, and I had to beg my way to be able to take a picture there over there at Stonehenge. Do I get points for that?
Lovely.
You do.
It was lovely.
Massive brownie points.
There you go. I couldn't help but think it was a moment that we wanted to capture in a timeless moment. So as we get started here tonight, I just want to show you right quick what the schedule was like for August, because we are here in Unit 3. And tonight what we're doing is we're going to dive into Lesson 10. Now we will go back and do a quick flashback to Lesson 9. I'll give them just a little bit of a hard time here, but because before we go into Lesson 10, you all had a very spirited discussion last week and only made it halfway. Now I know it was hard not to have the feminine there, and you all get to talking, but you were really good. So what was it? What was the enthusiasm last week that kept you all going?
We had synchronicity.
It's the three amigos.
It was the three amigos.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yes. Well, Jackie, we were holding space for them, weren't we, as we went along?
That's right.
So, John, we know we're not going to give you a hard time. I thought it was wonderful conversation, and I was really, really proud of the initiative that we've all co-created here together. We are up to 368 subscribers here on the Awaken Your Inner Genius channel. How is that?
That is awesome.
Yeah, very, very exciting. And what I also wanted you to know is that we at Tesla Tech, I'm just now talking to my team as we got ready for this broadcast, is that we are at Tesla Tech, and we did a presentation, as we mentioned, Karen and I, about Walter Russell and the holographic nature of the universe, just to get people interested. We were besieged by people at our booth. They were so excited, wanted to know more, interested in ordering materials. And then even other speakers this week also included quotes from Walter Russell. So it was very powerful. And we even had a chance to, I had a chance to be on another panel right before Greg Braden spoke and talk again about some of the conversations about the power of balancing science with philosophy and the lesson of love that Walter and Leo held dear to their hearts. If any one of you, I thought just wanted to comment on that, because I thought you'd be very proud of us. Jackie, you saw a picture of the booth, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got that kind of response.
It was. And people are really liking this Awaken Your Inner Genius message, and it's really resonating with people. So, John, I'm going to throw it over to you here and have you start with, you said there were some important things that we needed to go back to lesson 9 before we dive into lesson 10. And to our audience members, we want to encourage you. Hello, sweet one. So good to see you. We want to encourage you to go ahead and put any questions that you have in the chat box, maybe from last week or anything that we talk about here as we go along. And instead of waiting for Q&A, as we have done in the past, we're going to try to take questions throughout the session. So, John, where do you want us to begin?
Well, we have to kind of get serious here, because we're at that stage in these lessons to where you got to know where we are, or where you are individually, and you got to know where we are collectively as the human race. And these 2 pages, page 190 and 191, kind of lay the groundwork for where man has been, where man is, and hopefully where man will be, years into the future. And I didn't want us to forget this section, because it's important just to know that Krishna and Buddha and Jesus, they all delivered this exact same message. Unfortunately for them, the human race wasn't evolved enough. Civilizations weren't evolved enough to speak science and so on. But so here we are doing it again. God sends Walter and Leo Russell to deliver the message one more time, 2,000 years later. So hopefully this time we can get it right. And I just want to say to everyone listening out there that you're ready for this message, or you wouldn't be tuning in. And we want you to become a cosmic messenger, and perhaps you could reach out to 10, who will reach out to 10, and so on, and help and help this human race survive. So
well, let's show that, John. Let's pull up page 190 right quick, because I'd like everybody to see what the verbiage is, and I want you to hone in on what that factor of 10 is, because the area that you're referring to, I liked over on page 189, before you get there, when we were talking about preceding the exalted stage of cosmic consciousness is the genius stage. These are the illumined ones who interpret God's rhythmic thinking and God's soul language of inspiration. I love that line, soul language of inspiration. That always speaks to my heart. But that's really part of the power of this genius stage, is that that's a stepping stone to cosmic consciousness, is it not?
Yes. And I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
No, go. I just wanted to agree.
I was just saying, getting ready to say that earlier in the lesson. The Russells gave us the numbers of the number of illuminates and the number of geniuses since the dawn of consciousness. So the numbers aren't that great. Okay, but the awakening is underway.
Yes,
and
it is.
Just think of the geniuses that never got the opportunity, that were just, pushed down in educational systems and family scenarios.
Well, and I wanted to comment on that, John, because that's something I saw this week at Tesla Tech. So the Tesla Tech conference is about bringing people together who are for all kind of healing modalities, new energies, and many of these people are exactly what you said, John. They have this desire in them to do something different, and yet the system has beaten many of them down. And so there were many stories about how they've risen above it. And I have to tell you, it was so beautiful to see the light inside so many of these people that want to step into their genius. And so they spend their their time, their energy, their money, creating these new healing modalities and new technologies. And to me, it was about that awakening that you all keep talking about, is that we're watching this awakening of people who are like, I want this next level.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
what I would comment on there is that some people may not understand what is awakening within them.
right.
And hopefully, and that's one of the purposes behind these teachings, is to give them a blueprint so that they can identify, just like people would come into the museum and they would, see some of the science drawings, and then they would just go, oh my God, I'm not the only one that's ever seen this or experienced this, and so on. So that's where we are with these teachings.
Well, let's jump down to page 190 right quick, and then I'm going to ask Jackie to even chime in, and Jim as well. So on page 190, you were referring to the area that they called, if we'll scroll down there, the supreme tragedy of the human race. And you were referring that, John. It says the greatest tragedy of humans is their failure to recognize and comprehend the Krishna and Christ teachings. And you were mentioning some of that. And even on that next paragraph, it talks about the Christ of Hebrews transformed many of his own people with his great love. And we'll scroll down for that a little bit more. And I'm just curious, when you're wanting to say that this awakening is about turning around this supreme tragedy, is it not?
Yes. And we have to. And, our little group, and there's many out there that feel in their hearts that they're doing the same thing and the right thing. But the science of these teachings, and I wanted to just emphasize that is the separation point between these teachings and everything else that's out there. It's complete. It's total. And that's why Dr. Russell had to wait for Leo. He had to wait almost 20 years for her to show up on the scene so that the love principle and the human relations principle of this message could be married. And it's important. And that's what these teachings are. It's that marriage.
So if we'll scroll down to page 191 right quick, Jackie, I just wanted to ask you to chime in right here. I'm going to mention one of these comments here. I'm going to go to that paragraph that says that with this, we must do lest we perish. Okay. We have no choice. Every cultural institution, as well as all industry, commerce, and government must place the acquisition of higher knowledge first. And as Markham's wisdom in saying, in vain do we build the city if we do not first build the man. And so, Jackie, as another woman, I'm just curious about when you've seen all these teachings as we continue here, and then I'm going to go to Jim. What does that particular statement mean? In vain do we build the city if we do not first build the man?
Well, if man doesn't have character, if we don't build character in our children to know what the right use of will to say, or to do what is right, and to learn that giving loving principle over hurting or harming your classmate or your friends, or even your parents or even yourself. So building character would be the first building block, so to speak, so as they grow up and progress through life, they can still keep right action in their business and in their own families, knowing, more or less God first, self, and then family, and then community, and then humanity is the order. Because if you don't have that first, if you don't have that order, you get all chaotic.
Yes. Very, very true. Well, and Deborah's chiming in what you were saying, Jackie. Deborah says we cannot build conscious community with unconscious people. We cannot build a conscious community with unconscious people. And Jim, I know that was also one of your favorite quotes. Anything you want to add?
Well, the importance here is holding on to, and Jackie nailed it, individual character and building individual character. That's why the first lessons in the course are based on meditation and direct connection with source, because that is where true character is born, from the divine within. And when you understand universal law and the law of balance, you don't want to knowingly do anything that will cause an imbalance or harm to another. In fact, in Leo's code of ethics, she literally has a line that says it is better that you hurt yourself than that you hurt another, because you can forgive the hurt upon yourself and you can correct it. But when you hurt another and leave them wanting or angry or seeking vengeance, that's a wound you can't fix.
Right.
So it's important that people understand character. Individual character is what builds a civilization, and lack of it is what destroys it.
I think that's incredibly powerful. And so I want to say a welcome to Karen, Deb, and Sharon, and Bruno. So good to see you all again as well. And so, John, can you comment? You made that message. You said something about go get 10 other messengers. So can you explain for people who are new to this, what is a cosmic messenger? And what are you talking about when you say go get 10 more?
I wanted to just add a comment to Deborah's statement about the conscious community and the unconscious community. So this message is geared towards the conscious community. Those that are not awakened, those that are not ready, are not going to purchase a home study course. They're not going to read this, and they're not going to listen to you try to talk to them about it. So we are trying to build a conscious community. It's not that we don't care about those that aren't interested, but they're on a different path. So to get back to your, so in the message of the Divine Iliad that was given to Walter Russell, that was one of the commandments that Doctor was given from God, is to reach out to 10 other awakened individuals who in turn will reach out to another 10. And it would end up building legions of cosmic messengers for this message. So that's where that comes from, Kimberly.
Well, and I want to share something with you all. So to everybody who's listening, you've been part of our co-creation on this T-shirt idea that we've been birthing as we've gone along. So while we're clunky as we're going along, what we have done is you saw some of the designs. We had some of the T-shirts printed. The team has seen some of the T-shirts. I actually brought the T-shirts to try them out here at Tesla Tech. And there's something very interesting that I noticed. Okay, so we will eventually have those online. We have to reach a certain number of followers first. But what I noticed is the conscious people, John, were coming to us wanting to buy T-shirts to give to their unconscious family members. So, so here's what was interesting is they wanted to find something that was just catchy enough, just a phrase, just a sentence that they could say, hey, I brought you back a T-shirt from the conference. And I heard that repeatedly. And I thought that was a really loving way to, like you doing what you said, kind of wake up some other people.
Well, that's basically sowing a seed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe taking that shirt on and off and looking at it as they put it on and off, it might spark something, right?
Right.
And we never know what that something will be. I think the Russells talk about that in the upcoming unit, that something beyond.
Well, I thought you all would enjoy that because it was really fun for me to see. And I want to thank everybody that's actually part of this whole conversation, is that's what we've created. So let's see where the T-shirt, what kind of seeds are planted with our little T-shirt idea that was budding from all of this. Between Ken and James going home today and Karen finishing up the coordination of the conference, please know that this whole thing was well represented there. So shall we, I'm asking the team, do you want to go ahead and dive into lesson 10?
Let's do it.
Sure.
All right, so lesson 10. So this is from the home study course, which we encourage everyone to receive their copy. There's a link in the bio for this channel in order to be able to order that. And what we're doing is what Walter and Leo had suggested, is 1 unit a month, and it equates to 1 lesson a week. So why don't we, Jim, why don't you start by talking about the principle of the holiness and sex matehood? Would you just share that first paragraph, please, as Joey will scroll up?
Absolutely. We have long sailed through the shallows of superficialities of matter, motion, and process, and are now sailing into deeper waters in our search for the higher knowledge, which you must have in order for you to become the omniscient being of God's intent for man.
Why don't you continue with that next one? Yeah.
We have directed our efforts toward the reversal of your thinking from outward motion toward inward stillness, to awaken that divine light of all knowledge, all power, and all presence, which centers every whirling thought wave which constitutes your body. Isn't that nice to be reminded of that? We talk about God as being omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, and they just said that when we discover the divine within us, we discover that within ourselves.
That's part of why we also chose to start with just a meditation. I mean, in all fairness, you would go longer with a regular meditation, but it was a moment as a reminder for us all that even though we're taking this journey together, we really do want everyone to go to that moment of inward stillness. Because John, you repeatedly told me when we were pulling together this idea that the home study course was exactly that, a home study course. And you wanted us to walk a very fine line between encouraging people to take their own divine journey and yet doing this collectively as a group. So can you just comment on that right quick?
Yes. As Leo told Jim and I many times, she reminded us that it's an individual journey. Okay. And even though we are sitting here and sharing collectively, but you have to do your own work. You have to do your own meditation, your own desires to grow inwardly. We can't do it for you. But that's why in the very first page of the home study course, the Russells want you to know just how special this home study course is and how you should protect it. And don't lend it to anybody. It's for you and it's your own personal growth. And so if you wanted to reach out and find some like-minded people and they have a home study course and you want to share like we're doing, that's great too.
Well, and that actually goes down to that top paragraph on page 194, John, because it says in this particular paragraph, just how much of the light we have awakened in you is dependent upon how much you have mastered the great art of meditation, which gives you the power to transform sensed effect to its mind cause. And so I know we're going into details there, but again, bringing home the point of meditation. Now, this is important. I had a woman who stopped me just this week as she heard us talking about Walter and Leo Russell, and she was asking how she could learn more about this illumination and how her growth pattern was. And what she described to me is that she had no conscious meditation practice at all. And what I noticed is that some people were fearful of it. And so it's important, I think, for all of us just to recognize that living in a society that tries to keep us busy and entertained and engaged all the time is actually a distraction from what's really calling to our hearts. Is that fair to say, Jackie?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. The distractions, what we call life.
What we call life.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is my life. This is what I do. This is who I am. And then you realize you're not. What is real is that place within, that peace within, that stillness. That's where it all stems from. So it doesn't matter what you do, what's happening on the outside, you're creating it. So how clear do you want to be? And so through meditation, you get that clarity. And I remember one of Leo's statements in the importance of meditation is that you have this efficiency of motion. So when you are in, your waking state, which can also be meditative, you have this efficiency in your steps. I've noticed it before when the clarity of my thinking and prioritizing and getting it all done, it happens when you're clear-minded. Mm-hmm. And I just love that about meditation.
It does.
I guess the more you do it, the more clear it will be every day.
And we all need clarity, that is for sure. So, all right, John, so let's dive into the first concept here that's at the bottom of that paragraph, because this is one of the important concepts of this lesson. So it says to say the same thing in other words of more import, which you have not yet heard from us, we again repeat the following words: to unite the divided two into the united one. I want to say that one more time: to unite the divided two into the united one. And so we encourage all students to jot that down. And so, John, start us off here as the former president of the University of Science and Philosophy, and then I'm going to ask Jim to comment. Help us, because that's a different kind of language than we're used to hearing. What does it mean?
Well, later on, a page or two in front of this, the Russells lay out how Krishna said the exact same thing.
Right.
Okay. So the divided two, is the male-female principle of the wave. And then the desire force of the union of those two to come back to the one. So from God, there's a division into the seeming two, and then the desire for those two to negate each other to the back to the zero stillness of God. And that cycle is a repetitive cycle that will go on for eternity, forever. So once you understand that everything starts with God, and as thinking begins, that undivided white magnetic light of mind is a separation, simultaneous and sequential, of the male-female principle of light. So I don't want to go too deep yet, but that's the foundation there.
All right, so let's start there, because as myself as a new Russell student, this is where some of it sounded so different to me. My brain did not know how to process it. I'll be honest with you. So when they would say these things, okay, talk about it in common language, I would have to be sitting there writing my phrases down and writing what they were saying in very careful order, right? So let's go ahead to the next paragraph, Jim, because I'm going to ask you to chime in, because this is where it's describing, as we scroll down a little bit, it says, now we are really getting into deep waters, for we are getting right at the heart of the least understood but most basic principle of creation, the sex creative physical principle, which is measured, balanced, and controlled by the spiritual surveyor of motion known as gravity. Mankind has never yet fully realized or understood the basic spiritual nature of sex. So before you comment, to all those of you listening, just breathe into this. It's not something that has to make sense to you today. It will begin to unfold in your consciousness, but a seed is being planted today. So Jim, what do we want to say about that?
Well, they're telling you that all of creation, every aspect from the cosmic to the micro, is in constant sexual interaction, each seeking a balanced partner to void the other out, which is what awakens the divine within you. This is the very core and the basis of nature. We couldn't have what we call a universe without this constant interactive exchange between feminine light and masculine light. And there's no escaping this. This is universal law. Now, the gravity shaft that they're talking about is the divine stillness that is at the cube boundary of every body and every action reaction. And they'll get into that in detail as we go into the science. But it is that simple. Every action reaction is seeking to find a equal and opposite action reaction that it can balance and void itself out with. Now, we don't always accomplish that in our goals in life. Sometimes we get into situations where it is an uneven exchange, and that unevenness, those things that were not balanced, are recorded in nature, voided in the gravity shaft of divinity, and then repeated back to we embodied ones in nature as we left it. So whether it's in this current lifetime that you're in and you've done an imbalanced action with another person, deliberately or undeliberately, that will be represented to you, and you will be given the opportunity to avoid it through balance and love and service to your fellow man. If you don't do it in this incarnation, you'll do it in the next or the next or the next. There's no one holding a stopwatch saying, okay, you've got 90 years, and if you don't do it, you're done, you're going to hell. That doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, eternity is eternity, isn't it, Jim? I mean, so that's what someone was telling me the other day. They said, obviously, we must come here because we get bored of everything being perfect, and we hang out and do some other things. So you're saying that we have eternity to get it right.
We do. All mankind will come to me in due time, but theirs is the agony of waiting. That's right from the divine Iliad. That's God telling this illumined man, receiving his message from the God that he wrote down as the divine Iliads, why and how things work. So basically, the universal one is, it being infinite, is infinitely patient. It doesn't matter how long we take to awaken, we will. And if we and the time that we fail to do that, we will deal with the imbalances that we create through not being awakened. It's not punishment, it's just universal law.
Okay. So, John, anything you want to add to that before we take our first break? I'm going to make a comment to the group after you speak.
Yes.
No? Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've never known you not to have a comment about something having to do with this. Much love. Much love.
I want our audience to know that gravity is one of the main tools that God uses to divide his oneness into the seeming two and unite the seeming two back into one. Gravity is the fulcrum from which everything in the universe, every physical thing that you can see, stems from. So, and that's why they were saying gravity is probably it's still misunderstood even today. We look how far we've advanced scientifically, but go ask a scientist what gravity is. He'll go, well, right.
Okay. Now, for everyone who's listening, we're getting ready to take our first break, and I want you to breathe through it in just a few minutes because I know some of this can sound a little bit different. I know for me, it took a little bit of unwinding to go back to, from what I'd learned about gravity before and all of these things. And so all I want to share with you is tell you that once these things begin to make sense over the upcoming months, it makes life so much more fun. That was what it was for me. It was so much more fun and joyful to have an understanding that everywhere I looked, these principles were unfolding. And when you see that kind of divine order in all things, it makes you realize that you are, in fact, part of that incredible divine order.
Beautiful.
All right, so it's time for our first 3-minute break. And so our practice is, as we try to take a 3-minute break, we want you to stand up, get some water, take care of yourself. We'll have a quote and some music, and you'll see the timer for 3 minutes on the screen, and we will continue the conversation when we return. If you'll forward to the quote, Joey.
Joey.
If we'll forward to the quote, and then the music will be coming. right, if you'll find your way back. So I saw the timer start to reset, and I was like, wow, did we just have a time warp? So I know Joey's handling all the tech behind the scenes. And thank you. So the 3 minutes is a nice way to kind of have us all reset, is it not? It's
Yes.
these are big subjects, and it's helpful for us to have the movement to even help assimilate that. So John, let's continue. Let's continue here, because when we go to the bottom of 194, and I'm gonna just skip ahead here towards the end of a paragraph I'd like to read, and we're used to hearing about marriage alone does not transform two into one, as many of us were taught. Okay. But if we'll look at 194, we're scrolling down to 194 for just a moment. Okay. And it says, go up a little bit, Joey. All right, right there. So it talks about, so marriage alone does not transform two to one, nor do a minister's words transform two into one. The words are but abstractions, for they are not scientifically understood. And that is precisely what we mean by saying that we're sailing into deeper mental waters. That which but very few men and women of the earth even slightly understand is the sex polarity principle. So that's an important phrase to get into your head. Sex polarity principle of gravity, which unites the two into the united one. Now, I know we're going to come into that a little bit more as we go along, John. But I wanted to go ahead and skip on to the next page in 195, and you're going to see where I highlighted. I had a circle around a particular phrase there, right there. And it said, if you were to look upon the physical man of the day, you'll see that he was so absolutely unaware of this one holy principle of nature. So can you pause a little bit and talk about, because there takes some, when we think about traditional thought processes, we always think of this uniting of marriage as the two to one, but really it's a creation principle. And that's, for me, what was profoundly different in these teachings. So John, can you start and then Jim chime in? John's on mute.
I am.
You are, but we now hear your voice, dear.
Okay. Thank you, Joey. The concept, the idea of man is still unfolding, and it's still basically in its infancy. And you'll find out later on in this particular chapter how the Russell said that it may take a million years yet for the idea of man to complete itself. So we're kind of like at the beginning here. And so the entire universe, especially the material animal kingdom, is guided by instinct, which means it's guided by God directly. We, as the idea of man and being humanity, all right, we were endowed with that sovereign gift of life, so that we and our Creator can be known and seen as one. And so, animals have sex to procreate, the continuance of the species. All right. But there comes a time where man awakens, and there's a spiritual aspect to sex matehood. Because if you don't have something in common with somebody, if you can't talk about God and you can't talk about nature and the wonderful things out there, you're missing the point. Okay. So again, like you said, Kimberly, without getting too deep, but it's just that we have to know where we are, yes, right, where we've been and where we're going.
And I want to add to that in just a minute, but Jim, you want to add a comment to that?
Well, the inwinding, the two waves of the inwinding light of divinity, namely male and female, are both inwinding at the same time and onwinding at the same time. That's the grand illusion. Both actions are taking place at once, but they're winding toward a center mass. The center mass is the equatorial line between any body mass, the equator. When those two reach the equatorial body line, the masculine dominance, that is the male on the inwinding side, that's the Our Father who art in heaven, relinquishes that domination to the masculine or to the feminine female, which becomes the dominant outwinding. So the masculine, in effect, of all humanity in all bodies, not male, female, everyone has male, female in them. The inwinding building of the body, the Our Father who art in heaven, is masculine dominant until it reaches the center of the wave cycle, which is carbon. And at that point, it voids itself and gives itself over to dominant feminine, which is the love nature to regain. Now, this is happening. I know what I'm doing.
Pretty deep. You're going pretty deep, my friend.
Separately and at the same time. But it is happening. And I wish I could say it in a simpler way. But
no, I know. So let me just pick on you just a bit, because for some of our students that are new, if we see everybody on the screen, so here's some of the things that I learned from hanging out with these very well-versed students you see on the screen, okay? All of these have had 50 years Jim, 50 years John, 45 years Jackie. And so here I come walking in as a newbie here in this lifetime anyway. And here's what the liberation of what this principle was that makes it very practical to me. So I was taught, and I'd like to keep all four on screen so I can see everybody's face at this moment, is because this is a pretty big subject. And I think there'd be others that many of us were taught in some of the distortions of religion. We've heard all this thing about two become one. And I joked with you all before that when I first learned that, I was like, dear God, what 50% of myself am I killing off? I really was frightened over that. So I had no romantic notions about this two become one. And being that I was in a deeply South religious kind of thing, I was more threatened by the fact that you must stay in a holy union because you're going to sin and go to hell. And that very distorted view robbed me. I allowed it to rob me of at least 13 years. Now, there's always a reason. The soul uses the lessons. I get it. Advance now to what you all have taught me through this work. And I recognize that instead of beating people up about this notion of two becoming one and it being so bad if things change, it was exciting to me to hear this principle that you all started to talk about, because then you begin to understand the power of creation and what you could create together. Does that make sense?
Yes. And if it's a good balance between any two masculine and feminine forces coming together, if it's a good balance, it will last the test of time, and it will be very productive and very loving and very supportive of each other. This old rule that the father rules the home is nonsense. Universal law of balance as love rules the home.
Something's going to come up and whack you, Jim. You know that. Like in my day, if you said something like that, somebody would get in serious trouble.
Well, that's all right. If someone is vehemently disagreeing with you, they're just letting you know that the situation they're locked in love and bless them. It's not a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of universal law. If you seek a balanced mate and you work to be balanced with the mate, that's the mate that you marry, your family members, all interactions always seek balance through love and patience with each other. That's what should rule the home, the family, the community, the country, the world. When that is the goal, to seek balance and the love principle, the world will evolve unbelievably fast. And it's starting to. People are waking up to that.
I love that. Jackie, you want to chime in? Because this really was a major aha for me when I was, you're on mute at the moment, but a major aha.
Well, one thing that has always stuck with me, or what I've learned, is, we created ourselves basically through our thinking, but as God, created us as the two individuals, seemingly individual, to also then co-create. So it doesn't necessarily mean you got to have children. I mean, what creative endeavor are you into that you can balance the male and female? Even when you come together in a marriage, there is some creative endeavor involved. There has to be, or there couldn't be a balanced relationship. You either have kids, you can run a business together, you can create, artwork together, whatever it is. You could, the wife could stay home and the man could go to work. There's a balance there. There's a creative process in making the home and anything creative. So for young people, and I usually tell these young people, is if you're, head over heels in love with somebody, you think you're in love with them, what creative endeavor do you see yourself in your future?
Yes. Yes.
And then
Well,
make
and I
something.
think there's great wisdom in that, Jackie. I love the way you bring that up. And, that's something that you and Jim, you have a creative endeavor even now together.
Right. Never ending, right?
So, John, you once told me, does it tie into this particular principle that when we're talking about this uniting the divided two, it's not just about marriage, is it? Creation can happen in other ways, can it not? I'm asking sincerely about when you have people coming together and partnering to create as we go into the rest of this lesson.
No, there is no other way creation can come into being other than that.
Well, the principle stands strong, John. The principle stands strong. It doesn't matter what interaction you're talking about. Every interaction between two individuals or two thought patterns or two beliefs is seeking to balance and understanding throughout the universe. It's not just a male-female embodiment thing. It's universal law in practice everywhere, and it's us learning how to stay in balance with universal law and universal principles that will awaken that inner divine. Kim can't give me illumination, but she can stand on the road and point the way. And if I am inspired by something, the way she's pointing, and I choose to walk that can aid me in achieving illumination. Or I could choose to walk the sensual road. Look, let's all forgive ourselves for 1 minute here. We are in bodies that have been totally focused for the last 1,000,000+ years or longer on outward acquiring to feed and build the body. It's a habit that's built into our thought patterns throughout multiple lifetimes. The fact that we're able to even sit and discuss this high teaching at this time shows that there's a transition taking place in man, and you're not to be angry with yourself for those things that you consider to be outward thinking shortcomings. You're to forgive yourself, pick yourself up, and forgive those around you, and go forward and try to lovingly share and point the way together. We don't have to deal with this guilt principle. Just throw it out the door.
But and that's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, I've done so much of my healing around it, but I'm bringing it up because others, I think, is their awakening. That was what I was seeing even this week. Is people were really having to lay down. They could feel this need to want to lay down these old belief systems, but it takes a bit of a process. And so I wanted to jump in.
If any union is a good union, if it's a balanced and loving union, it will multiply and progress and last. If it's an imbalanced union, it will be separated, drawn apart. If it's a very bad union, it can be an explosive separation, such as divorce and murder and hate and all the things that are explosive reactions in human nature. So in seeking relationships at all levels, you want to seek to have relationships with individuals and people that are like yourself, loving and supportive.
Well, that's where I was going. It was talking about the partnerships and the relationships of all kinds. Because, John, I remember, being that I've met you and I was a single person, and I was pretty not only looking at this whole issue of someday having a mate. I wasn't jiving for that thing. And you were saying, Kim, if you create with somebody in an organization, if you create with someone something that you're birthing creatively, this kind of principle still applies. And I remember how eye-opening that was for me. John?
Well, there's the opposite too of what Jim was explaining. Like attracts like thinking. So if you are not of a high character, right, and you steal and you lie and you cheat and you do mischievous things, well, guess what? You're going to attract those kind of people around you. Right? Just like the old saying, misery loves company. So if you're miserable, right, you're wallowing in your own self-pity, and that's what you're going to attract. And then it's just the opposite. So if you're, energetic, outgoing, loving and supportive and so on, that's who you will attract into your inner circle, if you choose to.
Well, it's important for us to note here, though, that I mean, this universe, this reality, the matrix, however you want to call it. I mean, we've often been taught that opposites attract.
That's the biggest lie there's ever been behooved on man. There's no such thing in nature. It's impossible. You can't take two ends of a bar magnet, two south-souths, and force it together, and two north-norths and force them together. Mother Nature will not allow you to do it. You can't do it. You can try like hell, but it ain't never going to happen. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and so I think it's very important. We'll jump ahead to the bar magnets in the future lessons. But some of our folks are saying, "Man, I wish I'd known this stuff 50 years ago." So let's have
we all.
Yeah, we've heard that.
I knew this stuff 50 years ago and still made all the mistakes.
Except Jackie wasn't a mistake. Jackie, what's your thought?
No, Jackie is a blessing.
I just want to add that this is kind of how I looked at it when I was learning this, like attracts like. When you put, when you put the magnets together, you do put the north side and the south side together, because that appears to be opposite ends of the magnet. But what happens is you have the north and the south, but the south and the north. Sorry. Okay. If you think the south and then the north, it creates the flow in one direction. It's still like attracts like, because it's attracting that one directional flow versus opposing.
All right. So we'll have to have
what she's saying is when you put the north and south ends of a magnet together, you get a bigger magnet, and the fulcrum of the magnet goes to the new center. That's the 0 point of divinity. But you just simply have a larger magnet.
But that appears that opposites attract, when really that's where the illusion is. That's where that illusion comes from, the north and the south.
Well, and part of what I believe our series is about busting those illusions. So that's part of why I'm bringing this up. Yes. So to keep us on track, I want to go ahead and jump ahead to the bottom of 196.
If I could just make one comment for clarity here, to help people understand.
Joey will scroll down to the bottom of 196 while you jump in.
Okay. So let's say that you and I are together, and you said to me, John, I'd like to paint the living room a different color. And I'm like, oh, wow. I was thinking that myself. And you go, well, I was thinking of a sky blue. And I was like, well, I wasn't really thinking about that. Maybe an olive color or something would work. So the principle I'm trying to explain here is that until you and I agree on what color that room is going to be painted, it's never going to get painted. Right? So that's where like thinking comes into being, right? When you're on the same page. And we've talked about, we kind of touched on this a little earlier, where two of you, right, are gathered in my name, right? So in science, your power is cubed. You're 8 times more powerful as a couple in like thinking than you'll ever be as an individual. So remember that.
Yeah, that was a hard one when I first walked into that museum. But anyway, continuing the conversation, that'll be a much more spirited conversation if I do that on the next episode when we have Ken here. So in the bottom of page 196, it says this. It says it's talking about that man is still strongly material minded because his discoveries have been translated into material values instead of spiritual ones. He still senses television, radar, and other such discoveries commercially and quite fully misses their much deeper spiritual meaning. It's very difficult to convey the meaning, which is the new thinking by textbook language. And so I wanted to pause for just a moment because that's really what's happening in our world. We're getting more and more sucked in to this whole idea of material values versus spiritual values. And that's what part of what the Russells were trying to shift in this whole home study course, were they not?
Yes. It's the core. It's the core of the whole course, to turn us away from seeking effect of things and learning the cause of things. When you know the cause of things, then you can make sure that the effects that come from those cause of things are used in a proper manner, where it serves humanity instead of harming humanity.
Okay, so let's scroll back down to the bottom of page 197. We'll continue the conversation. And John, I'm going to ask you after I read this to jump in. It says,
right.
can you not plainly see, therefore, that the human species is slowly unfolding to an awareness of being able to see that something, in all caps, which has not been physically painted into the picture, or hear that something other than sound, which is not the sound, that other something is idea. Idea is never created. Therefore, it cannot be sensed. It can only be known. Creation manifests idea, but the manifestation is not that which it manifests. It is but a simulation of it. Now, we'll come back to the main screen, but I wrote down acorn there, John, because that was something very important to me that I learned when I was with you all and I was working with the Russell experience, is that you can't see the oak tree in an acorn, but you know it's there. So can you help our listeners with that particular concept about this concept of idea? So
Right. All idea has to unfold. Once it's brought into being, it has to unfold. So just like the acorn. So who knows how many millions of years that oak tree, right, has done its thing, grown, matured, and died, and then was resurrected who knows how many thousands, millions of times through those acorns. But the idea, I don't know if people could even fathom this. Do you know that every limb that is moved by the wind is recorded in the soul seed of a tree or a blade of grass? And so what you see today is the totality, and it's an ongoing thing. The tree will evolve. It will get stronger. It might get bigger, whatever, but it will always be an oak tree. But remember this, it is an illusion. It's a simulation. It doesn't exist. It only exists in mind. But our senses see it, sense it. We think it's real. But no idea, as I mentioned here, ever leaves mind. It's only projected on the cosmic cinema as motion, and we sense it, and therefore we think it's real. But there'll come a time when you will realize that all it is motion. And it's
all right, you just went pretty deep, John. So help me out here.
Yeah.
So
all right.
So make it in step one. Step one is as a new student, someone would need to understand that something is idea. Idea is never created. Can only be known. So just explain that one piece. Idea. So
all right.
give me.
So we'll jump to God, right? Can you see God?
No.
No, you can't.
Yeah, kind of, but yeah, no, we can't technically.
No, you can't. Yeah, you can see qualities.
I see you. I see all of you, and you're God to me. But you know what I mean.
I got you. However, so God is undivided white magnetic light, right? So you can't never see God, but you can know God. You can know the qualities of God. You can know how God creates. All right. How life and death and the sequences take place.
All right, there's a question, John. So is a tree an idea or a creation?
It's both. But the idea comes first, and then it's projected on the cinema of motion.
All right, so why don't you make it practical for people when they're purchasing but let's say they're going to build a family. So what is the idea and what is the creation? Okay,
for example, let me just hit our audience right between the eyes. Now this is going to blow their minds. Suns are crucibles of all idea. So everything that you see and know on this planet is nature is in the sun. There.
I was talking about a house, John. You went to the solar system.
No, it's not the planets, the houses of the solar system.
Come on, you're killing me.
All right, you want me to simplify it to a home?
Yes.
All right. Now you got me. I lost my train of thought here.
All right. Well,
What
then
the hell am I supposed to be explaining again?
while you're finding your way back, Jim, just jump in, because here's the thing: is I want to be really honest. Is that whenever I would have these conversations with these very seasoned Russell students, they got it and they understood it, and I could see the light on in everybody's eyes. But there were times I got lost. So this is part of why I'm lovingly pushing on you all, because
Right.
I want to invite people. So what do you say to simplify this, Jim?
Back to the Divine Iliad, where it's stated that. Well, it just went right out of my head. Give me a second.
I can help you, Jim. You
Help
see
me out,
this
John.
pen?
Yeah, I've
That's
got
an idea. There you go.
Let's just take it
So
from
that
there.
idea
Exists forever in stillness. Forever in stillness.
That's it. But somebody had to make the pen.
Right. The motion is the illusion that can only take place. We put things into motion. We have idea or an understanding or concept of an idea. If it's to own or have a house, we have to go forth and use our own two strong arms to manifest the manufacture, the building, or find an existing house that meets our needs. If we don't make that effort, it's not going to happen. The difference between the genius, the master, is they know it will manifest for them. There's no question. And they go about the job of manifesting it, knowing it's coming to them as they move toward it. So the seed is idea. The embodiment is what we see as the body of the seed that becomes the tree. That's all illusion. But the idea remains forever present. If the planet were to be cast off right now and back into the sun and it ceased to exist and all oak trees cease to exist, the idea of the oak remains at stillness with divinity. And somewhere in this universe, you can be damn well sure it will appear again because it's eternal. Okay. Idea is eternal. Embodiment is temporary.
Okay, so this is we're going to come back. When we come back from our next break, we'll talk a little bit about this difference of some of this. There's a few questions here in the chat box, but I will end this segment before we go on break with this one nugget that came from the Tesla Tech Conference. There was a librarian, an archivist that has the World Research Organization, and he's collected 35,000 documents and original equipment, and together to try to preserve history. So he was really excited about the Russell history and the Russell archives. And here's what he said. He said he had somebody with a huge lake that said, "Oh my goodness, how are you going to drain that huge lake into that little bitty hole?" And the guy says, well, I would ask you is how are you going to try to explain the whole universe in this one little tiny head? So don't let this blow your head. Blow your mind. We are talking about big concepts of creation and the universe, and it's very exciting. So let's take our next 3-minute break. Get up, stand up, breathe in, get some water, and we'll continue our lovely conversation. right, if you'll find your way back. So as everyone comes back, so I wanted this is a fun discussion, and if you'll see the love there of everyone on the screen, these are things that they've all been very, very patient with me as we've learned, and we'll be taking the timer off the screen. And I wanted to jump in and continue this conversation because as everybody would, please put your comments in. So there's some pretty heavy. All right, so they're going deep, John. So I'm almost scared to answer some of these yet. So while we're on the SEXED principle, what if sodium is sodium from the red male half of the fifth octave? What if Sodom was from the red male half of the fifth octave and Gomorrah was chlorine? Holy bull, Jolie, they just jumped ahead 3 units.
Well, it's true. Any two things that come together that are not perfect mates, they're subject to be separated if a perfect mate comes into the scene. Now, in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah, they began to live solely for body and solely for sensuality. And as a result, they put forth thoughts and actions into the universe that reverted back and destroyed them. God did not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, according to my belief. Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah according to their actions and their beliefs. They caused the upheavals and the flames and the fire and the brimstone that fell upon them through their negative sensual thinking. And that's the way I approach it.
Okay.
Now, the beauty of this course is that we can all have our own concepts and ideas and respect and love each other for it. And even the young lady that talked about God and Jesus, yes, God, the universal one, is always present. And Jesus and God, he told you, were one, but he was also a embodied man who walked on this planet. And look at the screen in front of us. There's 4 individual embodied people who are walking on this planet right now in bodies that are the same divine source, but each one of us has experienced a different life and a different activity because of the decisions and the choices that we have made prior to getting here and after we leave. So we, as eternal spirits, we are here embodied, and we are also present throughout the universe through our divine self. So there's no mystery to it.
Right. Well, so I want to continue with that, Jim, because I wanted to go ahead down. If we'll scroll down, Joey, on page 198, I want to go to that third paragraph where it says, and this is kind of a big emphasis in the change the way you see the world. It says, idea lies solely within the mind of the creator. When you become even slightly aware of the creator within you, you are then the creator in the measure of your awareness of him and you. To that extent, your inner vision can see what your outer vision cannot see, and your inner ears can hear what your outer ears cannot hear. And you can have the doors of vast knowledge opened up to you, which no textbook could give you, because the invisible idea which the textbook manifests is not in them. So I want to bring your attention to doors, because anytime you all see the Awaken Your Inner Genius logo, we were very purposeful to put in doors to be able to open those doors to the vast knowledge. But I wanted to ask the panel for something about this, John, because what struck me with the Russell work was, we'll go back to the panel here, is that the entire emphasis of what they were trying to say is that we are here to create. So most of us are raised to say that we're just here to figure out how to grow up, be successful, make a living, and have retirement. We're not taught this notion and the joy of creation. We have it when we're children. We're always wanting to create. We're creating play spaces. We're creating forts in the woods. We're creating drawings. But we get that whole idea of creation snuffed out of us. And I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, it's sad, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, listen, your sovereignty as a God being, you've been endowed with all the power of the universe to create anything you want, to think anything you want without judgment or criticism. So, that's true freedom. That's real freedom. And we're here. We're here to glorify our Creator. And the only way we can do that is first become aware of the Creator within us. And then, so joy, right? Jim and I and Jackie, and Kimberly, you've heard me say it many, many times. Whatever brings you the greatest joy in your life, you do it. So whatever you're creating, and it brings you joy and it puts a smile on your face, or someone else may glance at what you're doing, whatever project you're doing, or so on. That's what it's all about. And it goes on forever. Now, how beautiful is that?
Well, and when people have that understanding, John, I find that that's where the joy comes. For me, as I was watching so many of you that had studied this work, and with that light that was on site and that was so powerful, I saw the joy in creating music. I saw the joy in creating something in the yard. I saw the joy in, for me, creating an experience for students to come to the museum. Creation comes in many, many formats, and to me, it was incredibly healing for me as a woman who was not able to have more than one child. Even though I was grateful for that. And I know some women were not able to have more. When I understood that everything that we do is creation, we literally are birthing creations. That's our essence. It was incredibly healing. And that's what we're really all here to do, isn't it? Create.
You can't create.
You know, Ken.
All right, Jim first, then John, and we'll go to Jackie.
I'm saying you cannot not create. The trick to your discovering your divinity is learn how to create what you're here to do. A divine planet filled with divinely awakened people. We're here to manifest divinity. How long that takes is irrelevant. It will happen. Along the way, you're going to come into contact within your own family, within your own group of friends, within your community, within your country, within the world, of people who don't think and act as you do, and they do taking from others to survive. They become a parasite on humanity. We all, and they enslave their fellow beings to serve their needs. That's what the 9 to 5 is. It's either a means to manifest what you want out of life, or it's you enslaving yourself to a master.
Oh, wow.
You have to change your point of view. When I would find myself in jobs and in work that I was not happy in, I would go into deep meditation, say, I need to learn to love this and do it for the sake of serving my fellow man. And then the joy and happiness came in. And that's the simplest way I can explain.
Yeah, I wanted to add that, you know, when you're at a job, I mean, I had a job, you know, I sat in a chair for 20 years doing customer service and all sorts of other things that were fun because it was creative in the field that I was in.
Right.
So I had no problem giving service to the people who needed help. And like, this was my job and I was going to give it all I had. It didn't matter that I was the owner of the company. I prefer not to be in this case, you know, you just go in, and if you love what you're doing and you can get along with your people, and just do it. It doesn't have to be that is a creative endeavor. That's your part, your piece of the puzzle. So it doesn't necessarily have to be slave unless you feel like a slave.
And I love that. I mean, I want to think about even when we see sometimes women decorating their homes for the holidays, you know, there's sometimes that it can feel like a drudgery, but there are others that are like, oh my goodness, they're creating this magical environment for their family and their friends. And that's part of many of you listening. You've experienced this idea of creation inside of you. So that's what we want to bring to your awareness. That I remember spending a lot of time trying to make the Christmas tree and the stockings. And when you're doing that out of great joy and love, and you're in this energy of creation, understanding that's what we're here to birth, that's a very different thing than it being a drudgery that I have to get through the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the switch right there. Yes. Turn all things into joy, a pursuit of joy and service.
John?
Because you could be in misery doing your own dishes. You know?
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can. John, your thought?
Well, I was going to reduce this concept of idea to its simplest
wonderful
equation. You know, Ken's mentioned it before, and I even spoke about it on 2016 homecoming. Is that the average human being has 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day? All right. So of those 50,000 thoughts you're going to have today, how many of those were you able to give a thought body to where you're creating something from that idea? So if people want to contemplate on, okay, well, so just think of the wasted time, 50,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
And people can look around and they don't do a damn thing. They sit around, they moan, they bitch, complain, watch TV, stare into their phone 12, 14 hours a day, don't do a damn thing, right? But it's okay. They got eternity to find their own divinity and so on. But idea is eternal. And creativity is bringing idea
Yes.
into form.
There was a lovely young man who I tried to bring to a Russell experience, and he said to me, part of how he found his way into consciousness and awakening was because he used to play video games 8 to 10 hours a day. That's what he was. So that was his targeted age group, playing those in 8 to 10 hours. And then he started getting into meditation. And one day he realized in meditation, something opened up inside of him and he saw consciousness in a different level. And he realized he could do far more and have much more magical life, understanding this consciousness. And he took those 8 to 10 hours and started to go inside, and he said it changed everything. I started creating new inventions. I started to create a place for people to come and get healed where I was. He said what I realized is I was being distracted by all of those things that were not going to help me advance on my path of being this creator in consciousness. And he said the next day I ripped out all of my gaming, I packed it up, and I've never touched it since, because I recognized that's what this world was doing, was robbing us from our creative potential. Powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. Beautiful story.
So let's jump ahead. I love Karen said the conversation on page 199 with Krishna is so moving. And so let's jump ahead to 199 as we have another 10 minutes in this broadcast. For any of you having questions, please feel free to put this in. So if you'll scroll down just a little bit, part of what I really, really loved about the work of Walter and Leah Russell is that they did quote people from other faiths. And here they were talking about there are no more beautiful words ever written than the following words of Krishna to Arjuna, who had so deeply desired to see God face to face. Now, I'm not going to profess that I can actually read these words. Anybody wanting to try that? I wasn't going to try it unless somebody here is bold enough. But I did want to jump in.
I'll give it a shot.
All right, go, Jim. Let's see.
Arjuna, fain would I see, as thou thyself declarest it, sovereign Lord, the likeness of the glory of thy form wholly revealed. O Lord, O thou dearest one, if this can be, if I may hear the sight, make thyself visible, Lord, to all prayers. Lord of all prayers, show me thy very self, the eternal God. And Krishna replied, gaze then, thou son of Pythia, I manifest for thee those 100,000 shapes which clothe my mystery. I show thee all my semblances, infinite, rich, divine, my changeful hues, my countless forms. See, in this face of mine, wonders unnumbered, Indian prince, revealed to none save thee. Behold, this is the universe. Look what is live or dead. I gather all in one, in me. Gaze as thy lips have said, thy God eternal, very God, see me, see what thou prayest. That's a description of an illumination, and it's the best one I've ever read, and I love the
well, you need to finish it, Jim.
Is there an, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that one. Okay.
Yeah, okay. You left out the crescendo.
Okay, my apologies, John. Thou canst not, nor with human eyes, Arjuna, ever mayest. Therefore, I give thee sense divine. That's the illumination point. Have other eyes, new light, and look, this is my glory unveiled to mortal sight. And that's the illumination into enlightenment. And it's beautifully done there. And I do recommend that book. I can literally say, and I probably mentioned here before, that I literally have a book of the Song Celestial, the Bhagavad Gita, that was given me by Leah Russell. And she was walking around reading it one morning, and I asked her what it was, and she said, well, it's the song Celestial, the Bhagavad Gita, and this my copy is now your copy. And she gave it to me, and I try to go through that yearly. Don't always make it, but it's a wonderful treatise from an early Christ conscious being. Krishna was a Christed being, meaning that's the word we use for, meaning he knew the gates that John talks about. He had conquered and passed through all 9 gates of creation at the core, at the soul seat of each gate, and knew his oneness with Creator. And when you do that, that's what the Gospels refer to as becoming a Christ conscious being. And that's the ultimate goal of all humanity.
Beautifully, beautiful. So glad you said that, Karen, because that is a beautiful area. And to me, it also it mirrors what I saw in the magic. Is that when I started to understand the science and the creation aspects that were being taught here in a new way, you begin to see that the divine, the creator, God, is giving you messages everywhere. And you walk through the world feeling so loved and so honored and so joyful that you can't help. I mean, John all the time sends us texts saying, look at this sunset, look at this sunrise. You know, right there, I've seen it right there. And in a world where we feel so lonely and people feel so isolated, can you imagine the magic of us all realizing that everything that we see and we're walking through, we're missing the magic? That's what struck me, is after walking into that museum, that I had missed the magic for a decade that was right before my very eyes.
Yes.
And we can all fall into that.
So, Kimberly, I was thinking that if Robert De Niro was Krishna, how he would deliver that last line.
I could tell where this was going already. And what would it be?
He would go, you want to see God? You don't want to see God.
There you go.
But
there you go.
Isn't that, yes. But he revealed God to him. And there you have it. Inner eyes.
Isn't it beautiful to be reminded that the divine spark of divinity is in every one, every nation, within every religion, if you look for it. It's not yours to possess everything. Yes. People and things are not to be judged as not as perfect as you and your belief system. Until we let go of that concept and understand that every soul is on the road to awakening, and every soul will. And therein comes, again, I'm going to be repetitive about it, the forgiveness side of it. When you see people and groups doing things that are destructive to self and often even to you, the most difficult decision to make is not judge them imperfect and unfixable, but see them as perfect and divine. Know that divine spark is within them, and seek through your divine spark to awaken that divine spark in them. Don't judge them as not worthy. Nobody will be that way.
A couple of comments in our chat box here. Karen was also saying, she said, you can look out there and see destruction in humanity and nature, which can greatly influence the joy. Only moving into the space resolves it and can free me to act in balance. So she was saying, again, look for the things that are beautiful there. And Ida says, we are here to be happy, and it can happen only if we help others, support and respect in others, and we're here to create peace and love. And boy, isn't that the ultimate creation?
Yeah.
Peace and love.
Yes. Peace and love. And you do that by being the eternal optimist. Look for the good in all situations and pour love into them.
I remember hearing a story many years ago when when there was the people, they brought in kids to come kind of do a test, and they would look at toys, and they gave one kid a bunch of toys, so excited, went through the toys. Another child had a stack of toys, went through all the boxes, so excited. And then they took one kid to a little bitty closet, and it was just filled with manure. And he was so excited, and he starts digging, and everybody else was looking at him, and they were like, what are you so excited about? He's like, with all this stuff, I must be a pony in here somewhere.
All depends on how you approach it.
Must be a pony in there somewhere. So as we're moving towards the end of our time here, I want to move over to page 200 at the bottom there. And John, I'm going to ask if you could read the first few sentences there under bottom of page 200, go all the way down. And yeah, right there. And that paragraph is pretty powerful. So if you would
All
honor
right,
us.
very
please.
good. We are endeavoring to make it clear to you that higher knowledge is that omniscient light within you, which you gradually become aware of as God's silent voice. It means the multiplication of mind power through the unfolding of the inner spiritual vision. These teachings are ignored by the modern educational institutions. Their concept of higher knowledge is to develop human encyclopedias of information, which is useless to anyone who does not have creative inner vision. To stress the process of educating the brain instead of unfolding the mind stultifies whatever creative genius may be latent in a child. The creative genius in a child requires inspiration as a plant requires water. How beautiful is that, huh?
Yeah, that to me, that was just so powerful. And I wanted to just invite us all to go back to that time when we did feel that creative spirit that was really squashed out of us. Many of us have experienced that. And the exciting thing about this time in humanity is that we're all being offered a new invitation. Is that how you would say it? A reminder, a beckoning, a heart calling to say that we can bring that back. What do you think?
Yes, we can bring it
I
back, and
have
we
hope. The
No,
day
we
you
can
don't
and we
see me
are, and
here
it's
is
happening.
the day I gave up.
All right, Jim, then John.
Okay. I said we can and we are bringing it back, and this awakening is happening around the world. We have been so pushed into vast materiality for a part of the world and no rewards or materiality for the other part. That's a tremendous imbalance. And the technologies and the things that we have today in this world, we could easily bring beautiful and wondrous things to all populations around the world and allow them to self-evolve by not seeking to take and control. But humanity is still waking up, and there are those that are not awakened. And I always have it's instinct for me. I always go back. I'm so impressed with the master of Christ conscious being Jesus in his last day on the planet, where he was tortured and beaten and broken and humiliated in so many ways. And yet, after all of this, he calls out to God to forgive humanity for what they have done because they don't know. See, that is the thing. Forgive your fellow man who does harmful things to you because they don't know. Let it go. Send love. Break off the contact with them. I'm not a big fan, and I tease Kim about it all the time. Just because I see a grizzly bear in the woods and it looks beautiful and magnificent, I'm not going to walk up and give him a hug because he's a grizzly bear. So when you have grizzly bears in your life, avoid them as much as you possibly can, even though they might be magnificent and beautiful and something wonderful to look at.
Point noted.
They're a grizzly bear.
Point noted. John, any thought about just as we think about this inspiration? Because I know one of the things that I thought was so beautiful when we would do the Russell experiences together is that inspiration really is the greatest gift that one can give another.
That's right. That's right. That's how culture has evolved in humanity. So earlier in the unit, when the Russell said there were 200 geniuses, well, guess what? Without those 200 creative geniuses, the arts as we know them wouldn't exist. We'd still be just rolling around the planet like animals.
So inspiration.
We wouldn't know the difference. That's it.
Okay. So as we're
Yes.
going to a close here, I'm going to ask for final words from everybody. And if any of you have questions, please feel free to offer them there. We're going to wrap up just shortly as our team was incredibly busy this week. We were not able to complete all the things that we normally do here at the end, but we will be back on track for next week. I do want to go to the bottom of page 201 though, because we want to say a gracious thank you to everyone who's tuned in tonight. And I thought this was really powerful. And I want to jump down to the highlighted sentence. And the yellow highlighted sentence. And it says, a fully unfolded civilization cannot come into being any more than a flower can appear as fully matured. Our civilization has reached a point, however, where hundreds of thousands are becoming quite vividly aware of the light which centers them. Their spiritual unfolding is fast developing their inner vision, but they are confused by it and need to be shown the way more clearly. It is to these that our words are addressed, for they alone can understand them. So, any final words here from the panel? I'll start here. I'll start here with Jackie. Any response here as we wrap up the evening, Jackie?
No, I really don't have anything. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I just wanted to honor you and give you the space. Any final words, Jim?
Yeah, it's wonderful to have a situation where this information can be shared. I know there's people out there that understand what I'm trying to say, and there's people that don't. But I'm glad you're all here, and as we move into the sciences and try to hold on to the concept of the love principle that must go with it, we're going to have agreements and disagreements, but just love each other in them, and you'll be amazed what unfolds.
All right, John, final comment before I share my final thoughts.
I feel like I should be holding a daisy after that.
That would be honoring a creation, John.
No, what I wanted to help, because we spent some time on idea this evening, and I wanted to share with everyone listening. The next time you go into a grocery store or a department store and you walk around, everything you see has been an idea made manifest. An idea goes on forever. And think about it. How does God grow himself? So every idea that you have, every thought that you have, that you create, something adds to the whole. And how beautiful is that? Okay, so just if you're struggling a little bit with this idea thing, well, all you got to do, just look behind Jim, look behind me, and in the picture, everything you see is an idea made manifest. It's that simple. So then you want to pick and choose your thought patterns, and we'll get into that at another time.
All right, and so my final thought here, so just a quick mechanical thing. So next week we will continue. And it will be a lesson 11. So that will be what happens next Sunday. So a unit 3, lesson 11, will continue this higher knowledge and diving deeper into the sex polarity principle. And then the following week, we'll have August 25th. And it's possible that we'll even have Margaret jump on with us next August 18th. She was pretty inspired when she was with us last time and offered to come back. And I certainly told her she had an invitation. It's love to capture her thoughts here. But my final thought with this idea principle is I wanted to say something to all of you that are listening here today. So first, a gracious thank you to the panel as we take a look at who's there on the screen and everyone else who's not with us, because they're with us in spirit, and there's a lot of love and dedication that goes into the broadcast and bringing this together. And so when you talk about an idea that's manifest, we started this idea in December, and our first broadcast, we had 0 followers, and here we are to 368. We are each right here co-creating an idea manifested. Is that right, John?
Absolutely. It's very exciting and promising.
It is. And so what I want to say to all of you individuals who are listening now or in the future, wonderful souls, is that I know that there is an epidemic in society today where people wonder about their worthiness, they wonder about their impact, and they worry what value they bring to this world. Please understand that you are an idea manifested, a beautiful, gorgeous idea that is manifested. And so there is nothing wasted in the universe. And so as you leave today, what we want to send to you is our greatest love and our greatest hope that you'll begin to see just how precious you are and can continue this journey with us so that you may unfold more and more and see the miracles that is life. Do not be fooled by what you see happening in the world around us. Stay centered on your own growth. Stay centered on this unfolding of the light, and you will be amazed what's going to be ahead for all of us. So we say a gracious thank you to everyone who is with us now in the future. We will not say goodbye. We're going to say until next time, We'll see you next Sunday.
Great. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
See you, everyone.
Bye.